Hi, well, thank you, Congresswoman Zoe, for joining us today. If you could just provide a brief introduction about who you are to our readers.
Well, I am the representative of the new 18th Congressional District. We have a nonpartisan redistricting commission in California, and they took a kind of an unusual move and put the Silicon Valley, which I currently represent, in with San Benito, Monterey, and parts of Santa Cruz County ag areas. First time that's been done, but I have been reaching out to local officials. I want to do a great job representing the new part of this district, and I'm not completely unfamiliar. I chair the immigration subcommittee in the Judiciary Committee and wrote the Farm Workforce Modernization Act a few years ago. It's a bipartisan bill, but we got the UFW and farm employers together, reached agreement, and came up with a compromise bill to improve the situation for the farm workforce. So I had a lot of dealings with both the UFW as well as growers in San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz counties. And before Congress, I was on the Board of Supervisors in Santa Clara County, where I learned a lot about how local government works. I was very interested in healthcare issues and law and justice issues, as well as led up an effort for transportation. I chaired the traffic authority that built Highway 85, built Highway 237, and expanded Highway 101. And before that, I was elected to the Board of Trustees of the San Jose Evergreen Community College. And before that, I founded and helped found and was the first director of an affordable housing nonprofit in Santa Clara County. I went to law school at the University of Santa Clara while working for my predecessor, Congressman Don Edwards. I worked both in Washington and in Santa Clara County. I grew up in Santa Clara County in a very regular family. My dad was a beer truck driver. My mother was a cook in a high school cafeteria, later a secretary. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I got a scholarship to go to college and worked while for my room and board. I really feel a debt of gratitude to this country for the opportunity that has been given to me, and I want to give back.
Now, in all those years in Santa Clara County, how familiar are you with San Benito, and what do you know of its needs?
Well, I am not going to try and say I have lived in San Benito. I have not. But I do have staffers who live in San Benito County, and believe me, they can give me an earful about Highway 25 and some other issues. But I've been on a very proactive effort to reach out to the elected officials in the cities and on the Board of Supervisors in San Benito, as well as the cities in Monterey County and the Monterey County Board of Supervisors and the city of Watsonville, along with supervisors in Santa Cruz, because I think the best way to find out about a community is to listen to the people who live there, who are working on the challenges that their constituents are facing. So it's been a great opportunity for me to learn more about San Benito County, Hollister, San Juan. Actually, one of the first calls before I could even reach out, the mayor of San Juan Bautista called me, and we had a great discussion about some of the issues that that community is facing.
In addition to the mayor of San Juan Bautista, any other local leaders here in either Hollister, Tres Pinos, or just here in San Benito County that you have spoken to?
Yes, I've talked to members of the Board of Supervisors, and I've talked to city council members in Hollister, learning, their districts, so there are different issues depending on which part of the county that you're in. One of the common threads, though, for everyone that I've heard is the issue of transportation and how Highway 25 is really very troublesome for this community. And I'm hoping, obviously, the decision-making is made locally. I mean, the federal government doesn't decide this, but as the community makes decisions about infrastructure, my goal is to support their decisions, to see how we can attract funding to implement the local decisions. The other thing that I've had heard about is the issue of water infrastructure that is critical in San Juan Bautista, but also an issue in terms of water treatment, wastewater treatment in San Benito County and in the city of Hollister. So there is some funding in the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was signed into law a few months ago. One of the issues, I think, is how can we work together to see if we can attract some resources, because the San Benito County has a relatively small population, relatively small tax base. They're going to need help to deal with some of these big infrastructure needs, and I'm hoping we can help attract some funding.
You touched up on transportation and water. There is another issue that has been longstanding, and it's, I don't know if you've heard of the San Justo Reservoir that has been closed because of the zebra mussels.
I have indeed.
Yeah,
And
what is your knowledge, and how can you help open?
I don't know the answer on how I can help yet, but several of the local officials mentioned that the zebra mussel was found, and essentially the reservoir has been closed ever since. I mean, for a long, long time. I don't understand that. Obviously, I do understand if you find this invasive species, it has to be eradicated. That is, clear. But why that couldn't have been done and the facility once again open to residents is something I don't know the answer to. One of the interesting things is these new district lines don't go into effect until after the next election. And so I'm looking ahead to representing this area, but I don't currently represent it. So Jimmy Panetta and I are going to tag team these questions until after the election. And of course, Jimmy Panetta now has hundreds of thousands of new constituents in San Jose, and I'm going to introduce him to his new constituents in San Jose, who I have represented in the past. So we'll be working as a team the remainder of this year. I don't know what the resolution would be, but here's what I've found over the years. If something is stuck, and I've done this personally, you get everybody to the table. You bring, if it's the Bureau of Reclamation, if it's EPA, if it's whoever it is, and you get them all in your office and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Who's got what problem? How do we fix it? And that's how you advance something.
What are some of the benefits that you see with San Benito County being placed with Silicon Valley?
Well, it's interesting because I drove down, it's not San Benito, but I drove down to Salinas last Saturday and had meetings with people. And it's quicker to get to Salinas from where I am in San Jose than it is to San Francisco. And San Benito County is a very quick trip. I think what's happening is people who have been priced out of the insane housing market in Santa Clara County are now moving down to San Benito County, and it's increasing traffic problems and growth problems, but it also raises connections. Some of what I'm hearing from people is they would like the opportunity for residents in Monterey and San Benito County to have access to higher paying jobs that are available in the Silicon Valley. That's something that has been raised to me by the community college trustees I've spoken with. How can they get tied into that? It's the issue of broadband being made available to rural communities so that those job opportunities are available to residents. I think there's a lot of potential connections that can be made to the benefit of all. So I'm hoping that I can be part of that.
And you've sponsored bills on immigration, wildfires, clean energy, education. What are some of the recently introduced bills that would benefit the San Benito County community?
Well, I think certainly the Farm Workforce Modernization Act is an important element. It's one of the few truly bipartisan bills that passed the Congress, and it's my bill. It would legalize undocumented farm workers. It would streamline the H-2A program. It would provide assistance, loan assistance for farm worker housing. And since agriculture plays such a big role in San Benito County as well as Monterey County, I think that's an important measure. We have in the infrastructure bill that we passed, we provided funding for extending broadband into rural communities, funding for road projects, for water projects and the like. So one of the things that I'm looking to do is to connect with the local government officials who need to go after this funding to see how Panetta and I can assist and support those efforts. There are dreamers in every community. And one of the bills that since I chair the immigration subcommittee, that I helped to pass in the House is a measure to allow so-called dreamers, young people who were brought to this country as children and who are de facto Americans, lived in America their whole life, to allow them to gain their legal residence and then later their citizenship. We did get some Republican votes in the House, but it's stuck in the Senate. And I'm hoping now that the Build Back Better measure is behind us, that at least to be restructured, that we will have an opportunity to get that bill passed, because it's very important for these young people and for their families, and frankly, their communities. I hear not just from the dreamers, but their classmates, their employers, that this uncertainty that's hanging over their lives needs to be removed. We do bills every day for veterans, and I know that there are a lot of veterans in San Benito County. One of the measures that we did just this last week in the House would allow members of the National Guard and reserves to accumulate years of service that would count for veterans benefits. When you take a look at how we use the National Guard today, it's very different than how the Guard was used 40 years ago. National Guard is deployed to hotspots, into real fighting, and yet they are not given their full veterans benefits. We're going to change that. We're about to take up some other healthcare measures for veterans. I really think there's not enough that we can do to make sure that healthcare is available to those who served our country in the armed services. The list goes on, but I think the COVID fight is an essential one. As you know, the Congress provided funding to states and localities and to businesses, small and large, so that businesses could survive the beginning of this pandemic. And I have personally heard from a lot of people who were able to access those funds. It's the only way they were able to keep their doors open. We now know a lot more about COVID than we did when it first hit us. We know that the immunizations will allow the hospitalization rate to continue to decline. It will allow the death rate to decline. So we are providing funds for free immunization, free testing, so that people can make sure they're not exposing others who are vulnerable to disease, and also masks, the highest quality masks so people can protect themselves. Unless we get this behind us, our economy is not going to fully recover. And so it's not directed just to San Benito County, it's our whole country, but it's essential.
And the last question is, San Benito County is made up of two communities, the Latino community and the rural community, that feel or have long felt their voices have not been heard. How can you change that?
Well, I think the way to change that is to reach out and to listen, which is what I've been doing and what I plan to continue to do. I go back a long way with the Latino community in Santa Clara County. In fact, when I ran for Congress, The first time I was very much the underdog. The former mayor of the city of San Jose was expected to win, and I won in this way. We had people who worked as volunteers. I was elected by the Latino community and by women voters. And even though I was the underdog, I came ahead by 1,100 votes. And I'll never forget who put me in Congress. And I think our immigrant community is what really builds America. You know, I'm not an immigrant. My grandfather and grandmother were immigrants. They came here for a better life. And I see immigrants coming today with the same hopes and dreams that my grandparents had. Our country is lucky that people who want to come here and work hard and have a future are still coming, and their sons and grandsons are here. So that matters a lot to me.
Anything else that you would like to say to the Seminole County residents?
I'll just say this. I hope this is not the last time we have this discussion. Let's keep it up. And I'm very eager to represent the new constituencies in San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz County.